So where do we leave off now?
I was just talking about Penn State, and when I got there, I was up in East Halls, which was 8,000 students in that dorm complex in University Park. And I had some good friends. I had a really good roommate, one of the Caseys, who were, of course, a very prominent political family in Pennsylvania. And we had, I made a big social network as soon as I got there, but it was almost all guys, because as a freshman, you just couldn't barely get a date. But if you got a date, it was like a miracle. But I didn't clean up, my drinking or marijuana smoking or that kind of thing. But I did completely clean up my academics in terms of every night, no matter what I did, at about 11 o'clock, I would sit down and I would just study and study and study until, wee hours of the morning, to make sure I did well. And I kept that up all freshman year, sophomore year. During freshman year, I joined a fraternity, which was off campus, but an old Tudor house. It was really beautiful, neat old building, and made a lot of friends there. I mean, they were same kind of people I was, for the most part. I mean, there were some of them that were so serious they weren't goofing, they weren't getting drunk or anything, but most of them were, the same kind of partying, but also attending to school. So I did really well in college, worked really hard, and I broke up with my high school girlfriend in there. She broke up with me at some point there, which I thought showed wisdom on her part. In retrospect, at the time, I thought it was disastrous. And so sophomore year was good. As far as learning, I started to think that my longtime dream, from the time I was at least as early as 7th grade, maybe even, well, no, it's even older than that. It's like maybe 3rd or 4th grade, I told my mother I wanted to be a lawyer. Okay.
3rd or 4th grade?
Yeah, I did. Because she took me to one of the leaders of the church. We were attending a church where it was a Reformed Episcopal church, which is basically like an Anglican church, conservative Episcopals. And she took me, and she said, he's been crying. I had been crying. And Mr. Trolsch asked me what were they crying about. And I said, well, I want to be a lawyer, but I also want to be a minister. And he said, well, that's no problem at all. You can be a lawyer and you can join the Christian Businessmen's Club. Which, however I was 8 or 9 years old, that was a satisfactory answer, right, for me. I mean, in retrospect, it's kind of ludicrous. But I knew that was always the goal. I watched Perry Mason on television, and I said, that's what I want to be. I want to be Perry Mason. So I've watched that show from the time I was a little boy. It was one of my mom's favorite shows. And so at Penn State, I knew that's what I wanted to do. Now, I was so attracted to history, and I clept out of 6 credits of American history when I got to Penn State, based on, I had taken advanced placement history at high school, and I took the exam and aced the exam. But I had other things I had to study. Penn State had the basic 70, so you had to take a pretty wide shopping list of courses just to get your foundation, which I wish they'd still do that, because I think that's one of the problems. That is one of the reasons why the colleges are turning out crazy people, who think, Hamas has got a good argument. And so I don't, anyway, but I stayed in the frat house 1 year. That summer, after sophomore year, I went to work at a restaurant in Ocean City for my summer job. My boss was one of the two guys that came back from that college, and he had married. He was now like at least superficially respectable in that he had married a rich girl, and her father had bought him a restaurant down in Ocean City, and he was managing the restaurant. And so he knew I needed a job down there. I was basically starving when he got back to me. I was eating hot dogs and drinking water. But he said, Moon. That was my nickname, was Moon. For the comic strip Moon Mullins, that was my father's nickname. So people
I thought Warren Moon, maybe.
No. There was a Moon Mullins comic strip, which is a very, very funny comic strip. I mean, I still have some of them at home here in Amarillo, and I mean, it's kind of risque. I mean, I never read it when I was a kid, when that was my dad's nickname. But I mean, it's certainly, it was not politically correct, and it is not, it's not exactly written from a Christian perspective either. But anyway, so everybody called me Moon. So Bobby looks at me and he says, now Moon, I'll tell you what. You see these waitresses? I said, yeah. He said, you can have any of them except that one.
Of course.
That one. Okay, she's mine. And I'm like, okay. Whatever you say, Bob. And of course, I'm thinking to myself, well, how do you have a waitress? You're married to Carol. Like, how do you also have a waitress here?
Yeah.
But anyway, so of course, I get invited to a party over at the waitress's apartment with Bob. So we're over there. Bob gets completely drunk. Wants to get into his TR6 and drive it back to the restaurant where he lived in the back. And I'm begging him not to do it, but he's being a complete idiot and does it anyhow. He doesn't kill himself that time, but eventually that's what's going to happen to him. It's kind of was a foreshadowing, but that was a scary night, them doing that. And then I started asking this young lady. She was a very nice girl. Golly, I mean, I just feel sorry for anybody that dated me. I was such a jackass. But I do. I mean, I feel guilty about these women. I pray for them sometimes because I hope that I didn't ruin their lives, but permanently. But anyway, so we started making out in the walk-in refrigerator, when the crowd was light, in the restaurant. And, one thing led to another, and we were really in love. And this is long before I met Mary. Anyway, so she was at Duke, and so I would hitchhike down to Duke to see her from Penn State, which was a long hitchhike.
Yeah.
To Durham from State College. But I did that, and then we started living together up at Penn State when she graduated. She was a year ahead of me, I guess, in school. I guess that was after third year. And then I decided I could graduate with 3 years in a summer school. So I stayed up there with her that summer and graduated summer 74. So I basically got through college in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I was glad. I wanted to finish because I wanted to get out in the real world.
Mm-hmm.
All I knew about law was Perry Mason. I never knew a lawyer except this girl's father was a lawyer, but he was just a small town solo practitioner. So he didn't give me any advice or input or anything. So I just, I asked my brother, who was a college professor, I said, Gary, I want to go to law school. So where should I apply? And he gave me a list of schools. And I just applied to those schools. That's what that's what I did. I just did what he told me to do.
Hmm.
Because I thought he was smart. And my brother is smart. But anyway, so we moved back to Philadelphia after I graduated college, and we were living together in the old neighborhood. And I was working at a supermarket because I hadn't figured out that I should have applied to law school after my second year, so that when I graduated after my third year, I could have gone right to law school. So I had to do it then, but I had a whole year to wait. I had to wait a year. So I had to have a job. So I got a job. I had two jobs. I had one driving a bus, to picking up kids after school that were from broken homes and taking them to the Y. And then, as it turned out, they were supposed to have counselors and stuff that had, social work people. And they were such a bunch of dodos that they could handle the girls, but they had no chance with the boys, because the boys, they were all like budding juvenile delinquents. So my cousin worked there too, and the two of us, we took him out, and I just had him playing tackle football without pads or anything, or whatever, just keeping them moving, like running, playing, like, let's have contests, to see who can run faster, let's run like 27 sprints or whatever. Just anything I could do to keep them going.
And keep them
Because
as
they
a
were,
team in a group of people rather than trying to go after one individual. And
yeah. And they were bad kids, but I grew to like them all, and the girls were sweet as they could be. I mean, they were dear, and I wish the best for all of them. But, the boys, I mean, you had to watch the boys. I mean, they would hurt the girls. They were so mean, some of them, because they'd seen this stuff at home.
yeah.
But anyway, so I did that, and I was working night crew at a supermarket, stocking the shelves and unloading trucks, on the rollers. That was fun. And so then I got admitted. University of Chicago was at the time one of the top schools in the United States, and I'd done really well in my LSATs, and I got in there. And so that was the best thing. Up to that point in my life, that was the best thing that had ever happened to me. Okay, because the University of Chicago was so serious, so over the top serious. You went there, it was like you had joined a monastery. The girls were generally real serious students or ugly or both. And it was like, so I could concentrate on my work, and that's all I wanted to do. And of course I was thrilled after working, unloading trucks and stuff, to just sit around in classroom and listen to people give speeches and read books. I mean, it was like a vacation. Everybody else was stressing out. Thinking, what's really stressful? When it's about 4 o'clock in the morning and you got 4.5 hours more work, and it might even be longer than that, because the boss comes in, he doesn't like something, he goes, Mullen, you're staying for the duration.
Yeah. So
yeah.
when you're going through law, you get into law school. You're going through law school. When do you meet Mary?
Okay, so my first year, sometime, I think it was the summer after after my first year, because in those days you generally didn't take a law job after your first year, only after your second year. So after my first year, I went to work at the yacht club in Ocean City as a dishwasher, and I was, my girlfriend. I guess I had broken up with her by that time, or she had broken up with me. I don't know. I mean, we were bad for each other in the sense it was just getting too intense. And I don't really remember why we broke up. Anyway, we broke up. So I can't really put my finger on it right now. But I know that I did try to date that summer. and I had a lot of dates, but I didn't find anybody that I really
Connected
felt
with.
attracted to. Yeah. And I met a girl near the end of the summer at a party that I kind of liked. I remember she wrote her phone number down on a pack of matches. I remember that. I remember I bought a car right at the end of the year, right at the end of the summer, and I was with Mary's brother, and I hadn't seen Mary since like I don't know, might have been 10th grade, somewhere in there. Somewhere in there, my buddy Bobby got, you know, flipped his car over and got killed.
Oh man.
And
Yeah.
and Mary and I were both at the same funeral, but I still didn't know her. I mean, I didn't even say hi to her. We sat fairly close to each other at the funeral. And then, so her brother Jack and I were looking for help. He was helping me look for a car. I got a car. It was like an old Pontiac Bonneville or something, a couple $100. And he said, I know where you can get really cheap tags and you can get really cheap insurance up in Philly. Let's just drive right up to Philly. So we drove up to Philly and we got the tags, and then we went over to his house. And while I was sitting there in the kitchen, Jack's on the phone with this insurance guy. Mary comes in, and I hadn't seen her in a long time. And of course, she's just so beautiful. I mean, I was just like, just so beautiful. And she was real kind to me and gave me some breakfast. And I left there, and I knew I had to jump right in the car, basically drive to school, drive to Chicago. But I said,